Forget the history books told from only one side. For centuries, the story of the Crusades has often been viewed solely through the eyes of Western knights, shining armor, gallantry, and fervent religious ambition. But that is only half of the truth, a version heavily Eurocentric in its telling. Today, we flip the map of history. Step into the world of Muslim chroniclers to hear their accounts of the strangers from the north, and of an Arab world standing on the precipice of a great fracture. In those days, to the people of the Middle East, Europe was no promised land. In the eyes of scholars in Baghdad or Cairo, the West was a dark, cold land shrouded in mist. They looked upon the Christians with an air of superiority mixed with a hint of dread. In the diaries of Islamic chroniclers, Europeans were depicted as literal barbarians, fanatically bellicose, crude in behavior, and suffering from a severe lack of hygiene, while the Westerners considered bathing a foreign concept. The Islamic world was radiant with the light of science, medicine, and vast libraries. Imagine this. While Paris and London were merely small towns of about 20,000 residents huddled in narrow streets, Baghdad was a magnificent metropolis teeming with hundreds of thousands. This immense wealth and knowledge created a sense of complacency. Muslims looked down upon the barbarians slowly advancing from the peripheries like the Iberian Peninsula or Anatolia. However, behind the glamour of this civilization lay a bitter political reality: division. On the eve of the First Crusade, the Islamic world resembled a shattered mirror. The Abbasid dynasty, once glorious, was now a mere shadow of its former self, a king without a throne, isolated in a lonely palace. In Egypt, the Shia Fatimid Caliphate was gasping for air amidst internal strife. Real power rested in the hands of petty clans and local warlords across Syria and Palestine, who valued bloodlines over the unity of faith. The game changer was the Seljuk Turks. These fierce warriors rose like a whirlwind, swallowing Anatolia from the Byzantine Empire and exerting de facto control over the Abbasid territories. It was amidst this chaos, power struggles between Turks and Arabs, and rivalries between opposing sects, that the thunder of Western hooves began to echo. A storm of steel was gathering, and the Islamic world, despite being at the height of its civilization, was utterly unprepared to face it. History is sometimes decided by cruel coincidences. Just before the Crusaders set foot on the Holy Land, a political earthquake swept away the most brilliant leaders of the Islamic world. In a mere 2-year span, 1092 to 1094, the pillars of the faith collapsed one after another. The visionary vizier Nizam al-Mulk was assassinated, the mighty Sultan Malik Shah passed away, and both caliphs of the Abbasid and Fatimid dynasties followed them to the grave. The Islamic world was suddenly decapitated. Proud cities became like lonely islands in a vast ocean, while petty emirs scrambled for power. It was in this moment of utter vulnerability that the war trumpets of Europe blared. To the Muslims of that era, Pope Urban II's 1095 speech was not a beginning, but rather a continuation of a long-standing invasion from west to east. They did not call it a crusade. They called it the invasion of the Franj, the Franks. The First Crusade struck like an unannounced nightmare. Strategic cities such as Antioch, Edessa, and most significantly Jerusalem fell one by one. The brutality of the Western armies left a scar that would never heal in the hearts of the Eastern people. The Crusader states established by the Franks rose like thorns driven deep into the heart of the Levant. Yet the Westerners could not maintain their hegemony forever. The Second Crusade, a moment of shame for the French and German monarchies. They marched into Anatolia with arrogance, only to be ensnared and annihilated by Seljuk horse archers amidst the scorching desert heat. The remnants retreated in disgrace from the walls of Damascus, shattering the myth of Frankish invincibility. The rise of the legend, Saladin. From the ruins of division, Saladin, a military genius with a noble heart, unified the Islamic forces. With a resounding victory at Hattin, he reclaimed Jerusalem, shaking all of Europe and triggering the Third Crusade. Perhaps the most heroic chapter of this history is the confrontation between Saladin and Richard the Lionheart. This was not merely a clash of armies, but a psychological duel between two monarchs who shared a mutual respect. Although Richard captured Acre, Jerusalem remained steadfast under the banner of Islam. The Treaty of Jaffa in 1192 stood as a testament to a fragile balance. Jerusalem belonged to the Muslims, but its gates remained open to unarmed Christian pilgrims. As time passed, the original religious fervor of the West grew murky and corrupted. Instead of targeting Jerusalem, the Fourth Crusade stabbed its own ally in the back, sacking Constantinople, the very capital of Eastern Christianity. Finally, in 1291, the formidable Mamluk army of Egypt dealt the killing blow to the last Frankish strongholds in the Levant. The era of the Crusades closed in blood and fire, but for the Islamic world it was merely one chapter in a long resistance against expansion from the north. When the first armored divisions appeared on the horizon of the Levant, the local Muslim population did not realize a crusade had begun.
There are too many.
They mistakenly assumed these were merely new mercenary units dispatched by the Byzantine Empire. Soldiers who usually came and went after pillaging a few scraps of land. But they were wrong. These men had not come to serve for hire. They had come to occupy. Once it became clear that this threat originated from the deep heart of Europe, Arab chroniclers began to refer to them by a name that would become haunting: the Franj. 6 years after Jerusalem fell in a sea of blood, a legal scholar in Damascus named Ali ibn Tahir al-Sulami penned the Kitab al-Jihad, the Book of Holy War. This was more than just a book. It was a historical indictment. Al-Sulami was the first to perceive the terrifying bigger picture. He argued that this invasion was no coincidence but part of a systematic wave, starting with the Norman conquest of Sicily, spreading to Spain, Al-Andalus, and now reaching the Levant. A Franj army has descended upon us while we are divided and in discord. They have seized town after town in Spain, and now, seeing Syria in a state of chaos, they have resolved to make Jerusalem their ultimate prize. Ibn al-Qalanisi, another chronicler who witnessed the expedition at just 23 years old, recorded harrowing memories of Western military prowess. Despite viewing the Franks as barbarians, he was forced to admit their staggering talent on the battlefield. To Muslim soldiers accustomed to light, mobile skirmishing, the Frankish knights were like mobile war machines. Clad in heavy mail from head to toe and mounted on massive chargers, a single charge of Frankish cavalry could shatter almost any defensive line. When the mighty Seljuks, the premier military force of the Islamic world at the time, were defeated, a wave of panic swept away all confidence. Al-Qalanisi wrote, "This event was a profound humiliation for Islam. It caused a genuine terror, a fear and anxiety that rose to a horrific level." The works of Al-Qalanisi helped shape the stereotype of the crusader in the Eastern mind for centuries. Warriors possessing extraordinary physical strength and a fanatical will to fight, yet accompanied by a crude brutality and unforgivable crimes against civilians. The Islamic world suddenly awakened. They realized this was no ordinary border dispute, but a war of survival between two civilizations. If the battlefield was a place of blood and steel, the pages of the chroniclers were where the war of ideologies took place. There, the Westerners appeared as both formidable monsters and pitifully backward strangers. Among those who recorded this history, Usama ibn Munkid was a singular figure. Living to the age of 93, his life spanned the height of the crusading era. He was a warrior who drew his sword against the Franks at Ascalon, yet also a diplomat who sought to understand his enemy. His view of Westerners was filled with irony but remained remarkably balanced. On intellect, he regarded them as low in intelligence and was horrified by their bizarre, barbaric medical practices, such as amputating a patient's leg to treat a minor wound. On military might, he accorded them the highest respect. All those who know the Franks well regard them as beasts superior in courage and fighting spirit. May God curse them, they are the most cautious and warlike of men. Despite constantly uttering, "May God curse them," Usama had friends among the Crusader leaders. He even admitted being impressed by their court system, noting that their kings were not entirely absolute despots like those often found in the East. In stark contrast to Usama's composure, Ibn Jubayr viewed the Franks with utter contempt. Born in Islamic Spain, Al-Andalus, and having witnessed Muslim lands slowly falling to Christian forces, he carried a deep emotional scar. While on pilgrimage through the Levant, he was pained by the sight of Palestinian refugees forced to flee their homes. To him, for a Muslim to live under Western rule was a profound disgrace. How can a Muslim endure hearing foul words spoken against the Prophet or live among pigs and filth? Seek God's forgiveness if you dare set foot in their lands. Ibn Jubayr did not just write history. He used his pen like a war trumpet, attempting to wake the indignation of a divided and slumbering Islamic world. Towering above them all was Ibn al-Athir, author of the monumental The Complete History. He was the one who systematized the entire Frankish invasion as a tidal wave surging from Sicily and Spain all the way to the Levant. Ibn al-Athir understood that to win, Muslims needed faith. Within his records, he employed a clear political strategy. Emphasizing victories, he praised the triumphs of the Muslim armies to the heavens to bolster the soldiers' morale. Downplaying defeats, he moved quickly past painful losses, framing them merely as trials from God. Under his pen, the war was no longer a mere dispute over land. It became a great jihad, holy war, to protect civilization from the barbarian wave from the north. As the shadows of the crusading era began to lengthen and close, Abu al-Fida emerged as a final witness. Unlike his predecessors, who often used their pens for morale boosting, Abu al-Fida provided a gaze that was raw and piercingly accurate. He participated directly in the sieges of Tripoli and Acre. Under his pen, war appeared not in the rosy hues of glory, but only in the deep red of blood. He did not hesitate to describe the horrific massacres at Acre, where the victorious Muslim army executed all the men and sold women and children into slavery. It was a cycle of violence, a grim vengeance for what the Franks had inflicted centuries earlier. At Acre, Abu al-Fida witnessed the final collapse of the Crusader states. The image of the once proud Frankish knights was now replaced by scenes of despair, broken spirits, and a chaotic retreat. Looking back at the entire journey, we see a profound psychological transformation. The initial phase, curiosity. Muslims viewed the Franks as strange guests, perhaps even misguided mercenaries. The turning point, indignation. Brutal massacres in Ma'ara and Jerusalem transformed curiosity into deep-seated hatred. The final phase, unity. The call to expel the foreign invaders became an immovable wave, erasing any remaining intent for cooperation. For the modern West, the Crusades might simply be an interesting chapter of history, the subject of films or novels. But for the Islamic world, it is a wound that has never truly closed. Its impact still flows through the veins of modern history. For many in the East, the Crusades did not end in 1291. They view them as the first shot in a long history of Western intervention and aggression that continues to this day. Concepts like Crusaders are still frequently invoked by politicians and opinion leaders in the Middle East to stir nationalistic spirit whenever geopolitical conflicts erupt. The journey through the Muslim perspective shows us that history is not just a collection of dates. It is a tapestry of emotions, pain, and opposing viewpoints. To understand the Crusades from the other side is the only way for us to truly comprehend the fractures of our world today.